There's a conversation most people never have out loud. Not about how to make money, not about what to invest in, about what actually changes when the money arrives. What shifts in your daily life, your relationships, your decisions, the way people treat you at each level on the way up. Because here's what I've watched over 30 years in finance. The people who struggle most with money aren't the ones who never had it. They're the ones who got it without understanding what level they were actually at and what that level demands from you. So today, we're going from zero all the way to generational wealth. Every level, what it looks and feels like from inside, what the real problems are at each stage, and the one mistake that keeps most people stuck between levels their entire life. Let's go. Level 1, $0 to $1,000. Survival mode. This is where most people start, and honestly, this is where a lot of people stay longer than they should. Not because they're not working hard, but because nobody ever explained the one rule that gets you out. Meet Carlos, 24 years old, working full-time, brings home about $2,800 a month. Rent, car, food, phone. By the 20th of every month, he's watching his account like it's a game he might lose. One flat tire, one doctor visit that insurance doesn't fully cover. One thing goes wrong and the whole month collapses. Carlos isn't bad with money. Carlos has no buffer. And when you have no buffer, every decision gets made from fear. You can't think clearly about next month when you're not sure about this week. The psychology here is brutal. Financial stress literally narrows your thinking. Studies show that people under severe financial pressure lose the equivalent of about 13 IQ points in their decision-making capacity. Not because they're not smart, because the brain is running two jobs at once, managing life and managing the anxiety of potential collapse. The exit from level 1 is not a raise. It's a buffer. $1,000 sitting somewhere that you do not touch. That single number changes the entire psychology. Suddenly, decisions stop being made from panic. You start thinking a few weeks ahead instead of just surviving today. Carlos's whole job right now is one thing: get to $1,000 and don't touch it. That's the gate. Everything else comes after. Level 2, $1,000 to $10,000. Stability. Once that buffer exists, something quiet but significant happens. The noise in your head drops. Not gone, but lower. And that mental space is worth more than any investment return at this stage. Now, Carlos can start thinking about the next 90 days. He can negotiate at work because he's not desperate. He can take a small risk, a course, a side project, a weekend job, without the fear that one bad week ruins everything. The goal at this stage is simple: build a real emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of expenses. Not in the market, not in crypto, not in anything exciting. In a high-yield savings account, boring and accessible. Here's why this matters more than people think. Without an emergency fund, every market dip is potentially catastrophic for you personally. A lot of people got destroyed in 2008 and 2020, not because their investments failed, but because they had to sell at the bottom to pay rent. The emergency fund is what lets you hold. It's what separates someone who builds wealth from someone who almost built wealth and then had to cash out. This level is also where the relationship with money starts to form, good or bad. Carlos either starts tracking where his money goes and learning to make small, intentional choices, or he falls into lifestyle creep. Every raise gets absorbed by a nicer apartment, a newer car, eating out more often. Income goes up, savings stay flat. This pattern, if it starts here, follows people for decades. The transition out of level 2 is developing one income stream that grows, a promotion path with real ceiling, a skill that increases in market value, a side income that isn't just labor for dollars, something that creates upward movement, not just stability. Level 3, $10,000 to $100,000. The first real choices. This is where wealth building actually begins, and this is also where most people make the mistake that costs them the next decade. Carlos is 28 now. He's been promoted twice. He's got $22,000 saved, and he's starting to feel options open up that weren't there before. He can make choices now, not just react. The dangerous feeling at this level is arrival. $22,000 feels like a lot compared to where he started. It's not a lot. It's a foundation. The difference matters. People who treat $20,000 like an arrival point, they spend it on a down payment for a car they couldn't really afford, or a vacation that feels earned but sets them back 8 months, or they leave it in a checking account for 3 years doing nothing. People who treat $20,000 like a foundation, they put it to work. They open a Roth IRA and start the compounding clock. They invest in their 401k at minimum to get the employer match, because that match is the only guaranteed 50 to 100% return that exists in finance. They start separating money into purposes. Emergency fund separate from investment account, separate from spending. The other thing that happens at this level is that your network starts to matter in a new way. The people around Carlos are either building something or they're not. The conversations he has regularly, are they about opportunity or are they about why opportunity isn't available to people like him? This isn't about cutting off old friends, it's about what you feed your thinking. Level 3 is where mindset either accelerates or stalls wealth building for the next 10 to 15 years. Level 4, $100,000 to $500,000. Real momentum. I want you to feel what $100,000 in invested assets actually changes about daily life. Not the number itself, what changes underneath it. Carlos is 34 now. He crossed $100,000 in his investment accounts 2 years ago, and something shifted that he didn't expect. For the first time, the market's movement started mattering to him in a different way. Not because he was checking it obsessively, but because compound growth at this level starts doing real work. At $100,000 earning 10% annually, the market adds $10,000 to his net worth without him doing anything. That's meaningful. At $300,000, it's $30,000 a year in growth on top of whatever he contributes. The math starts working for him instead of him just working for a paycheck. But this level also introduces new problems most people aren't ready for. Taxes become real. At lower levels, tax optimization is nice to think about but doesn't move the needle much. At $200,000 to $500,000 in assets, tax strategy, Roth conversions, tax loss harvesting, the decision about which account type to hold which assets in starts to be worth thousands of dollars per year in real savings. This is where most people need an actual financial advisor for the first time, not to be told what to invest in, but to avoid the silent tax drag that erodes gains. Relationships change at this level too, in ways people don't talk about openly. Some people close to Carlos start treating him differently once they know he has money. Not dramatically, subtly. Favors get asked for, assumptions get made. Boundaries he never needed before suddenly matter. The transition out of level 4 is typically real estate, either a primary home building equity or an investment property in a strong rental market, or both. Leverage applied correctly is what takes most people from this range into the next one. Level 5, $500,000 to $2 million. Choices replace obligations. This is the level that people fantasize about when they think about freedom. And the fantasy is partially correct. Carlos is 43. His combined net worth, investment accounts, home equity, a rental property he bought 5 years ago, is sitting around $800,000, and something has genuinely changed about how he moves through the world. He can say no to things now. He turned down a promotion last year, more money, but the travel would have been brutal. He said no, because $800,000 in assets behind you gives you the ability to decline what doesn't serve you. That is a different life than most people are living. At this level, money stops being the primary constraint on decisions and starts being one of several factors. That shift is real, and it's worth more than any specific number on a statement. But there are new challenges here that nobody warns you about. Complexity. At $800,000 across multiple accounts, properties, and income sources, the decisions compound too. Which account to pull from in retirement? How to title assets for estate purposes? when to pay off the mortgage versus keeping it for leverage. These aren't problems you can solve with a YouTube video. This is where a fee-only financial planner pays for themselves many times over. Identity is the other one. Some people reach this level and realize their entire identity for 20 years was the pursuit. Now that they have genuine options, they feel lost. The goal was money. Now what? This is more common than people admit, and it's worth thinking about before you get there. The people who navigate this level well are the ones who knew what the money was for before they had it, not vaguely, specifically. The ability to coach their kids' teams without worrying about time. The ability to take 6 weeks off when a parent gets sick. The ability to start something without needing it to succeed on a timeline. Specific, intentional. That's the difference. Level 6, $2 million to $10 million. Real wealth. At $2 million, something fundamentally changes that I want to say directly. Work becomes optional. Not, I should retire optional. Optional. A $2 million portfolio at a conservative 4% withdrawal rate generates $80,000 a year indefinitely, meaning the principal never runs out if managed properly. For most people, that covers life. And it does it without touching the principal. Carlos is 52. He's not planning to retire yet, but he knows he could. And knowing that changes everything about why he shows up to work. He's there because it's meaningful, because he wants to build something, because the problem is interesting, not because he has to be there. That internal shift in reason, from obligation to choice, changes the quality of every day he works from here forward. At this level, wealth preservation starts to matter as much as growth. The goal shifts from building to protecting and deploying wisely. Diversification across asset classes, equities, real estate, private investments, bonds, becomes about not losing rather than just about gaining. Tax strategy at this level is a serious profession in itself. Estate planning, trusts, gifting strategies. The tax code has legitimate tools for people at this level, and using them correctly versus ignoring them can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars over a decade. And the relationship questions get harder. How do you talk to your kids about money in a way that builds drive rather than kills it? How do you give generously without creating dependence? How do you stay connected to people whose financial reality is very different from yours? These aren't small questions. They're the questions that determine whether the wealth serves the people or the people become servants of the wealth. Level 7, $10 million and above. Old money. This is where the rules change completely. Above $10 million, the game is no longer about building, it's about perpetuation. The decisions made at this level are not about Carlos's life, they're about the lives of people who haven't been born yet. Old money families understand something that new money almost always has to learn the hard way. Wealth without structure destroys itself across generations. Research consistently shows that most family wealth is gone by the third generation. The first generation builds it. The second generation grows up watching it built. They have some understanding of what it took. The third generation inherits without context, without the discipline, without the muscle memory of what created it, and it dissolves. The families that hold wealth across generations do 3 things that others don't. They create structure, trusts, family offices, investment committees. The wealth is governed, not just owned. It has rules, it has a board, it has a purpose beyond whoever holds it right now. They teach financial literacy as a core family value, not just be responsible, actual education. How the assets work, what the structures mean, what the obligations are. The kids are raised to be stewards, not heirs. And they attach the wealth to meaning, a philanthropic mission, a family business, a cause that connects the generations to something larger than the money itself. When wealth has a purpose bigger than spending, it survives. When it doesn't, it doesn't. Here's what every level has in common, and this is the part I want you to carry with you. The problems don't go away, they just change. Carlos at $0 was worried about making rent. Carlos at $2 million is worried about his kids understanding money. The anxiety changes shape, but it doesn't disappear. The idea that some future number will finally make everything feel resolved, that's a trap. The number never does that. What does change, genuinely, is options. The number of choices available to you. The ability to say no to things that don't align with who you are. The capacity to absorb a bad year without it being a catastrophe. The freedom to pursue work that matters to you rather than just work that pays. That's what wealth actually buys. Not things, options. And the people who build it consistently, regardless of where they started, are the ones who understood what level they were actually at, what that level required, and refused to confuse where they were going with where they already were. Which level are you at right now? And more importantly, do you know exactly what it demands from you? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one.